Hi, my name's Billy, I read books, and I'm going to talk to you about 15 books, series or authors that I want to try in 2024. I generally go for books that are going to surprise me, books I go into with very little expectation of, and therefore I avoid the big boys, so to speak, dead popular ones. The books that are getting talked about all the time on booktube at the time, I tend to avoid them. But 2024 needs to be the year I put that right. So I'm going to talk to you about 15 books, authors or series that I want to at least try. Next year, I'm not saying I'm going to read them all, but I at least want to try them. And we're going to start off, well, before we do, I'd rather tell you what the books and series are about, because I don't know, because I like to go into my books blind. I'm going to show you the covers here, and I'm going to tell you why I've not read them. And we're going to start off with the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. Everyone seems to like this series, everyone seems to love it. I always hear it's mafia-inspired fantasy. And people say that as a way to go, ooh, that's good, isn't it? It's a fantasy story inspired by the mafia. It's like a mafia tale, but in the fantasy genre. That's good, isn't it? And for me, it's like, no, that's really not, because I have never watched a mafia film and I have never watched a mafia TV program because I just don't like them. I've tried, but I just don't get it. They all go around smoking, thinking they're dead tough because they're smoking. Talking with food in the mouth, thinking that they're dead hard, going like this. And I'm just like, what's wrong with you? You might be dead hard, you might be dead tough, you probably are. You could probably kill me in a second. Great, but stop smoking, stop talking with food in your mouth, stop going on about disrespecting me and all this nonsense, and just get on with the story. Just cut all that out and I might watch it. Now, I'm pretty sure the Greenbone Saga is not going to be like that. But the minute I hear mafia this, mafia that, I go, oh my word. But I need to get over it. I need to get over this. I'm not going to watch a mafia program or film, but I am going to read the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. Or at least book one anyway. Second on the list is the Blood and Bone series by John Gwynne. And this is the second series he wrote after, the series he wrote after Faithful and the Fallen. It's his second series is what I'm trying to say. Now, Faithful and the Fallen, lots and lots of people rave about. I have read that and I thought it was good. I think I gave all 4 books 4 out of 5, but I didn't love it. It's probably about 3 years ago since I read that, and when I look back on it now, I just think, it's good. Yeah. But people have kind of said that this series, The Blood and Bone, isn't as good as Faithful and the Fallen, in their opinion. So if I gave those books 4 out of 5, am I only going to give these 3 out of 5? That's why I've not read it, because I just don't want to be disappointed. But the thing is, maybe because I wasn't that blown away with Faithful and the Fallen, maybe I'll enjoy this because I'm not going in with dead high expectations. I think people may have gone in thinking this is going to be even better and were a little bit disappointed. So that's why I've not read it. I've got them all, so I need to give it a go. The first book in this series I've had for quite a while on my Kindle, and it's the Powder Mage series by Brian McClellan. I think the first book is Promise of Blood, I think it's called. Now, why have I not read this? Well, it's classed as flintlock fantasy. I don't really know what flintlock fantasy is. I think it's to do with like gunpowder rifles. And have I really read a fantasy series like that? I don't think so. Which should be something I'd be looking into, looking forward to. But for some reason, it just doesn't inspire me. And I don't see many people talk about this now. I've had this for a long time, which is why I want to pick it up and give it a go. There's another book I'm going to talk about in a while that I've had for even longer. But this is one of the oldest ones I've had on my Kindle since I've discovered booktube that I've not got to. And at the time, lots of people were talking about it. And it seemed to be the booktube darling. A bit like what the Greenbone Saga was not too long ago. But then it's kind of fell away and not many people talk about it. So I want to give it a go. I want to give him a try. Oh, a book I actually own. Bear with me. Dear me. Not those. Should have maybe rehearsed this. Oh, you did rehearse this. The Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. This is book 2. This is The Wall of Storms. Look at the size of that. That's a big old book. I own the first one, and now own the second one. This is Asian inspired fantasy. Why had I not read this? Because the series wasn't complete. That's the answer. It is now, and now I need to read it. Science fiction. Revelation Space by Alistair Reynolds. I read House of Suns last year, maybe the year before, which is a standalone book in his vast number of books. And I really liked it. I think I gave it 4 out of 5, probably 4.5 out of 5 really. I really enjoyed it. It was a good entry point into his books to see what he's all about. And then I was at the crossroads of, I want to try like a space opera. Do I go for Revelation Space by Alistair Reynolds, or do I go for The Culture by Ian M. Banks? And I went for The Culture by Ian M. Banks. And I kind of wish I'd gone for Revelation Space. Don't get me wrong, the Culture series has got some good points going for it in the couple of books I've read in it, but Revelation Space is what I want to go to for Alistair Reynolds. Now, back to fantasy. This is an author I want to read basically the rest of the books he's got out, and it's Michael R. Fletcher. This is grimdark fantasy. I've read the two books that are out at the time of filming this in his Manifest Illusion series. I read a standalone book in that world called Swarm and Steel. And I think the final book in the trilogy is due to come out soon. But he's got 2 other series he's written, and I think I've got both of them. I think I've got a full series of one of them, and the other one I'm just missing one book on. But I've liked his books, I really like them. They're dark, they're different, they're also very funny as well. If you like dark, twisted kind of humour, which I do. So I want to read all his books. So I'm going to at least try one of his other series. But why have I not read them? Well, I like his books and I didn't want to just blow through them all. Because that's the problem. If you really like an author and then you read all the books, you've read them all. There's no more to come. That's why I've not read them. But why would you not read books by people you like? I don't know. It's just me. It's a me thing. Now, the oldest book I've got on my Kindle, when I say oldest, I mean that I purchased, was one I heard about at the time, again, when I got into booktube, roughly around about the same time, I think, as I was hearing about the Powder Maid series. And this is The Court of Broken Knives from the Empires of Dust series by Anna Smith Spark. This is a grimdark book. Why have I not read it? Well, the Goodreads rating for it is not very good at all. Now, I don't just go off Goodreads ratings and just completely dismiss a book. Obviously, else I won't be reading it, I wouldn't have bought it. But I have my own reasons as to why I think this book has got such a low rating. This book is very dark, apparently, violent and brutal. And I think people unsuspecting fantasy readers, may have picked this book up in a bookshop, maybe seen the author's name, thought, oh, that's an interesting name, I'll buy the book. Oh, it's a female author, maybe this is going to be a cosy fantasy tale in the style of Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. And then they've got a rude awakening when they've actually read it. I don't know what the characterizations are going to be like, I don't know what the plot's going to be like, I don't know what the writing style or quality is going to be like. But when this was doing the rounds, when Joe Abercrombie gets called Lord Grimdark, I believe she is kind of referred to as Lady Grimdark, even though she's only done this one series and just put out another book relatively recently. But I want to give it a go. The reason I've not read it is because, well, that low rating has kind of put me off a little bit. Only a little bit. I am going to read it, but that's the reason why I've not read it. That's the oldest book I have on my Kindle, fantasy-wise, that I bought, and I'm going to read it in 2024. Oh, more books I have in physical format. I said on a previous video, I need to pick this series up, and I did. It's The Long Price Quartet by Daniel Abraham. This is fantasy. I believe he writes slow burn fantasy. Now, you might think it's a duology. It's not, it's a quartet, but it's a bind up. 4 books in that. Slow burn fantasy. Daniel Abraham is one half of James S.A. Corey, who wrote the Expanse science fiction series. And yeah, for some reason, this guy, his books, he's got another couple of series out as well. But when I think of slow burn fantasy, if I just want something just a slow build, a slow burn, there's a number of authors or series that spring to mind, but it's always Daniel Abraham who's at the front of my mind. I don't know why, but the reason I've not bought it, I've not read it, it's because I've not bought it. I didn't own any of the books. I do now, so I'm going to read it. Shadows of the Act by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I think it's a 9-book series. It starts off with Empire in Black and Gold. I'm waiting on the next 4 to arrive in the post. So I'm going to have 5, the first 5 books in that series. And why have I not read it? Well, because I've not read any of his books before. I'm currently reading one now. I'm reading his science fiction book, Children of Time. I'm a quarter of the way into it, and I'm loving it. So on the back of a quarter of a book, I've just gone and bought another 4 books of his in a completely different genre. But that tells you what I think of his writing, his storytelling so far. It's very, very good. And that's his main, am I right in saying that's his main fantasy series? And I'm a predominantly fantasy reader. So yeah, I need to get into that. The Shadows of the Act. An author I want to get into and I'm going to read is Bengali. Now, why have I not read any books by Bengali? I've not got any books by Bengali, but I do now because he released pretty much all his books for 99p not too long ago. So I picked up his Chasing Graves trilogy, I picked up his Emineska series, and I think I got the next couple of books in the follow-on series to that. Is that called The Written? I can't remember. Maybe that's just one of the books. But yeah, Bengali is one of those authors who, in my mind, is a bit of a under the radar author. You know, everyone has like a top tier of authors that they've read. There's then like a tier of authors who they've not read but they're dead keen to get to, that everyone seems to be getting to. And then underneath is just a few authors just bubbling away here. And Bengali to me is one of these authors. Got the potential. Bengali could be a favourite author of mine. From the things I hear about him, things I hear about the books he's written, he could be a really good author for me. Depending on which series I pick up, whether it be Chasing Graves, which I think is more darker, grimdark maybe, or Emineska. I don't really know how to describe Emineska because I don't know much about it, but yeah, I need to pick his books up in 2024. Science fiction is The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu. This is a trilogy. I can't remember what the trilogy is called. The first book is The Three-Body Problem. I've now got all 3 books by it. And again, this book has been out a while. And it's one of those where I've had it and I've never quite had the impetus to get it. It was quite popular and spoke about for a bit, but then like with most things on booktube, things go in cycles. And recently, a few people I follow have been reading this series and have been loving it. And some of those have been mainly fantasy readers. So if they like it, it's got me excited to read it. So I'm going to read it in 2024. The War Eternal series by Rob J. Hayes. Again, same with Bengali, he reduced a lot of his books to 99p. So I snapped them up. I got all his War Eternal books and some other books of his as well. I can't remember what they're called. But I've had a bit of a mixed bag with Rob J. Hayes so far. I read his Best Laid Plans duology initially and really, really liked it. I had a great time. It was just a romp. It's just great fun. Just sit back, relax, have a good laugh, have a good time, have a good romp with these pirates with a bit of a fantasy element to it. And then I thought, right, well, I really like that. So the one I always hear about from him is Never Die. So I read Never Die and I didn't like it. And I thought, oh no, is Rob J. Hayes going to be like another Mark Lawrence where I read one series, like it, and then read something else and I think it's not very good. So I'm hoping The War Eternal is going to put me right on that because that's a longer series. Don't really know much about it. I don't really know how to describe it or what it is. But I think that's his... If Shadows of the Act is Adrian Tchaikovsky's main fantasy series, then in my mind, from what little I know about Rob J. Hayes' back catalogue, The War Eternal is like his equivalent of that, in a way. That's probably a really bad analogy. And any Rob J. Hayes fans watching this will probably correct me in the comments. Please do. We Are the Dead by Mike Shackle. I've got no excuse for why I've not read this. It's not mega popular series. I own the entire series on my Kindle. The people who I follow, who've read it, love it. Not many people seem to have read it. I was just waiting until I could pick up the final book. And once the trilogy was complete in my collection, then I'd start it. And this one is pretty much penciled in as a definite the whole series, because I am pretty sure of all the ones I've spoken about so far, yeah, pretty much of all the ones I've spoken about so far, this is the one I am most confident I am going to like and will complete. Final two now. R.J. Barker, The Age of Assassins. I don't know, is that the trilogy or is that the name of the first book? I can't remember. It's there. Why have I not read this? Training schools. That's the answer. Assassin training schools is what I believe is the setting in this, and it was only on reading Lightbringer by Brent Weeks, and then Lycanius by James Islington, where there's like training school bits in it, especially Lightbringer. That's what made me realise I am bored to tears of training schools. It's just a trope that isn't working for me anymore. I understand with this series from R.J. Barker's, that's what we're going to get. However, R.J. Barker seems to be really well received by the people I follow on BookTube. His follow-on series from this is The Bone Ships, and then he's got a third series, I believe he's starting. I think there's one book out in that already at the time of filming this. And my understanding is he gets better as he goes along. So I did consider skipping this series and going straight to The Bone Ships, but I don't want to do that. I want to start from the beginning with him and hopefully watch him progress and develop his books, his storytelling, get better and better as we go along. And again, R.J. Barker could be a favourite author of mine if this training school stuff is done well. And then the final series I'm going to talk about is, well, I don't know what this is. Is it a mystery? Is it a thriller? Is it science fiction? I'm not quite sure. And that's the reason why I've not read it. It's Wayward Pines by Blake Crouch. It's a trilogy. I've read two other books by Blake Crouch. I've read Recursion and Dark Matter. And I like them. They were 4 out of 5, both of them. They weren't amazing. They were good though. Fast paced, easy reading. I say easy reading. You could just blitz through it. The pages just fly by. And I understand this is the same. And I think what I've heard is that it starts off almost like a mystery thriller, but then towards the end of the first book, it just blows up into this science fiction story, and it was a science fiction tale all along. I don't really know what to make of that, and that's the reason why I've not read it. But I own it, and I'm going to get to it next year. So those are the 15 books, authors, series, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to at least try next year. It's quite ambitious. I will no doubt pull some other random stuff out my arse at some other point during the year, but we will see how we get on with that. Let me know what you're going to read next year. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you again next time. Take care. Bye bye.